Hey there, my name is Chue, and Expedition 33 was a game that I was extremely excited for when it was first announced. I waited patiently until the game was released and beat the game over the course of 13 days. This is that journey, or should I say, Expedition. If you've never played or seen the game before, this is your warning now, because I'm going to spoil everything in this video. In the world of Clair Obscur Expedition 33, there exists an entity known only as the Paintress, who appeared 67 years ago, and began painting a large number, starting with 100 for the world to see. Those of that age or older instantly vanish and fade into the wind, feeling not so good, Mr. Stark. The Paintress then goes into a slumber for an entire year, after which she will wake up to paint again, a number lower each time. Ever since then, many who are still alive and able have embarked on a journey, or an expedition, to kill the Paintress to prevent her from ever painting again. Each expedition team, except for the first one, is named Expedition, followed by the number that had been painted that year, hence the name Expedition 33. We begin the game as Gustav, one of our 5 playable characters. Gustav, at the start of the game, loses his ex-girlfriend, Sophie, to the Gommage, a celebration and farewell for the lives of people who are going to be Thanos snapped by the Paintress that year. She and Gustav separated because he wanted to join the expedition to kill the Paintress to end the Gommage forever, while she wanted him to stay with her until her Gommage arrived, to spend her last remaining time together. After the Gommage is over, Expedition 33 leaves Lumiere and embark on their quest to kill the Paintress. The team lands on the same shores that Expedition 0 did when this happens.
Fall back!
Gustav wakes up by a waterfall after that tragedy, and this is where the game officially begins. This game likes to bombard you with game mechanics whenever they first become introduced, which can lead to things being lost or misunderstood. So what I've done is basically create a character spotlight to explain each character whenever we meet them. Let's first talk about how the gameplay system works before diving into our starting character. This game is a turn-based RPG with a dodge and parry mechanic. What that means is that you as the player have the freedom to take as long as you like during your turn, and when it's the enemy's turn, you have the opportunity to either dodge or parry their attacks, allowing you to avoid all damage. I'd also like to mention that every single attack in the game is either dodgeable or parryable. Now if that sounds OP to you, you're absolutely correct. You can go through this game without taking a single point of damage, but that is insanely hard. The skill system in Expedition 33 reminds me a lot of Final Fantasy IX. Throughout the game, you'll receive items called Pictos, which are basically like your armors and accessories that give your characters base stat increases and give your characters a certain skill that comes attached. Once that character has been through enough fights with that Picto equipped, they will master the skill, learning it forever so that you can use it even if you're no longer using that same Picto. This is exactly like how the system in Final Fantasy IX works, except in this case, the Picto that you learn is learned for your entire team. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, let's move on to our first character, Gustav. Now, Gustav combat-wise is what most protagonists would normally function as in your generic RPGs. Gustav is a sword fighter that has the simplest combat mechanic compared to the rest of the party. Attacking, dodging, parrying, and using certain skills will give charges, which is Gustav's unique gameplay mechanic. Charges by themselves don't actually do anything, however some of Gustav's skills will deal more damage depending on how many charges he has, and will consume all of them upon usage. Compared to the other characters like I stated before, he is definitely the most straightforward to build and use. Not long after waking up, you'll run into Lune, the second playable character. Lune is a researcher and a scientist, which in a way reflects her gameplay and her unique gameplay mechanic. Lune is this game's traditional mage. She has access to your traditional elemental spells, but what makes her different is her unique combat mechanic. Whenever Lune uses a skill, the skill will usually generate something called a stain of that specific color depending on the element. For example, fire generates red, ice generates blue, and so forth. Lune can only have 4 stains at once, and if she gains any more, once she already has 4, it'll just overwrite the oldest one with the new one. All of her skills become enhanced whenever you use them while having the correct colored stains, consuming them and allowing you to do things like this. The build that I liked was built around these things. This weapon allowed me to generate stains without having to cast any spells. Oh, I forgot to mention, every character in this game also has a melee attack and a ranged attack. Using a ranged attack depletes your AP action points per shot that you use, but it doesn't count for your action for the turn. So let's say you have 9 AP, you can fire 9 ranged attacks and then swap to your normal melee attack or use an item. Anyways, with this weapon, it allowed me to freely set up stains without ever needing to have to spend my turns casting different spells so that I could cash it in later. With this, I could do it all in one turn. Now if I got really lucky and I got one of each colored stain, it will allow you to do something like this much later. Now that we're done talking about Lune, let's continue with the story. The two of them continue forward towards the Indigo Tree, which is where Expedition 33 agreed that they were going to regroup. There, they find an unsigned message informing them that Maëlle, Gustav's adopted sister, is at a certain location. The two of them get in a fight over what to do and how to proceed. On one hand, Lune is unsure if the message is safe to follow due to it not following proper protocol, which could lead them straight into a trap, and on the other hand, Maëlle could be in danger or dead, and Gustav, being her brother, wants to protect her. This leads to a 10 out of 10 speech from Lune.
When one falls, we continue.
Yes, I know.
When one falls. When one falls. Not if. When. We knew not all of us would make it, but we continue. As long as even one of us stands, our fight is not over.
Chills. Eventually, while going through the Flying Waters, the second dungeon of the game, we reach a strange door, and inside was Maëlle, who is safe and mostly unharmed. Here is where we meet our third character of the group, who is of course, Maëlle. Maëlle, in my opinion, is the actual protagonist of this game. She is the adopted sister of Gustav and is also the youngest member of the group. She is a fiery character, no pun intended, who isn't afraid to tell you what's up and get in your face. Mechanically, Maëlle, like Gustav, is quite simple, though requires a bit more thought. Each of Maëlle's skills will put her into one of 3 different stances. Offensive stance, which grants her more damage at the cost of taking more damage. Defensive stance, which lowers the amount of damage that she takes, and most importantly, grants you 1 AP per dodge or parry. And her final stance, Virtuoso, deals even more damage than offensive stance and has no real downsides. This is where day 1 of our expedition ended. Day 2 was basically spent entirely in the second dungeon. I walked through every nook and cranny that I could find in search of loot. I even found this guy, who I mistakenly thought was the final boss of the second dungeon. Eventually though, I did manage to locate the actual final boss of the second dungeon, and I ended up beating him on my first try. Now day 3 was a big one. I explored the new expanded world map, reached the Gestural village, and we met our 4th companion of the game, CL. Now, when I saw CL for the first time, let's just say that I wasn't very enthused about her joining the party. Not because I didn't really like her, but because I didn't know how many party members we would end up getting, and if it wasn't that many, then she's potentially taking a very precious slot that could have gone to someone else. Someone who was more interesting, and frankly, CL was giving off crazy girl boss vibes, and I wasn't really sure if I was gonna like that. But she shut me up real fast the moment I got to actually use her. CL's unique mechanic was so cool and interesting that I genuinely just sat there and contemplated with myself on who I would even replace on my team, as a max party member out at a time is 3 members. That means that Gustav, my trusty tank, Lune, my gun-slinging mage, and Mael, my little arsonist, were going to have to be replaced, and I wasn't sure if I could live with that. It felt like betraying them since we had gone through some pretty difficult stuff just to get where we were. In the end, I didn't end up adding CL to my main party, not because I didn't like her gameplay, but because she was the anchor of my team. Here's something really cool about Expedition 33 that I learned about once I got CL. If your party ever gets wiped out and you have characters on your bench, you have the option to then send those characters on your bench to finish the job. Once I realized this, I equipped CL with all of my solo pictos, and this made CL a one-woman army that could do anything that I couldn't with my main party. Sometimes, I even ended up going into fights using my main party as a bait just to learn what the enemies could do, learn the timings, and then, having learned that, I would use CL to beat it. All this talking about how I was using CL, and I still haven't even explained her kit, so let's just do that. CL is a double-sided scythe character whose skills are either labeled as Sun or Moon. Using any of these skills will put CL in those respective states. The Moon and Sun states don't actually do anything alone. It is when they are together that something magical happens. If CL uses a Moon skill while in a Sun state or vice versa, CL will then enter the Twilight, allowing her to deal significantly more damage and stack double the amount of Foretell. What is Foretell, you ask? Well, Foretell is an additional mechanic that CL has. She is also a card user that marks enemies with Foretell using certain skills. She can then use different other skills to consume those Foretell stacks to do more damage and even more effects. Finally, going back to the story, after recruiting CL, we go and talk to Golgra, the gestural chief, to receive a password to meet Eskie.
Bonjour, mes amis.
Eskie, the big fluffy boy, is our mount for the game, but he's lost most of his abilities, and we need to go around the world looking for his lost rocks so that he can recover his abilities. And yes, you heard that correctly, we are looking for his rocks.
I will need Flory,
Who's Flory?
one of my rocks.
Rocks.
See? Flory helps me swim.
We need his ability to swim across the ocean so that we can get to the next island, inching us ever closer to the Paintress. We discover that there's a rock nearby, which leads us to the 3rd dungeon of the game. The 3rd dungeon of the game is quite long, but eventually we reach the end and see this.
Ooh, but I sense something scary.
The amount of aura that this boss exudes is crazy, and just listen to that OST, by the way. After beating him, it turns out that he of course has a phase too. Once we've beaten him for the 2nd time, we find Flory, Esquia's rock that we came all the way here for, that allows him to swim while carrying others, because reasons. Lune and Ciel both hop down the cliff and onto Esquia, while Gustave and Maël stare at the paintress from where they are, taking in the victory and seeing how far they've come. However, they stay there a tad too long, as while Gustave is looking for a rock to throw at the paintress, the old man who wiped out Expedition 33 appears and kills Gustave in front of Maël.
It's more about the... Run.
After killing Gustave, the old man then goes up to Maël and Doctor Stranges her. She bounces back somehow, but before the old man can do anything else, a handsome man appears in between them and tells Maël to leave. Both men look at each other and exchange some cryptic dialogue that we don't understand yet, but it seems like the handsome one is on our side. Back at camp, after the remaining party has escaped, they grieve over the loss of Gustave when the handsome man walks into their camp. He brings Gustave's arm and tells them that he wants to join on our journey to defeat the paintress and was a part of the very first expedition. The handsome man then introduces himself and we get
Sir.
Now let's move on to his kit, shall we? Verso is similar to Gustave. Heck, he even has the literal same weapons as Gustave. But as you will have noticed with Gustave's weapons, they didn't have any passives, and that is because they weren't really Gustave's weapons. They were really meant for Verso the whole time. Verso's kit allows him to gain letter ranks whenever he does anything, from dodging, parrying, landing attacks, landing crits, and so on. The letters start from D and it climbs all the way up to S. The higher the letter rank, the more damage Verso will deal with his skills and more. Additionally, like all other characters, Verso will also gain special bonuses if they use a skill with the correct letter. I'm going to be completely honest here. Just like when I got Ciel for the first time, I wasn't really a fan. This time, it was for the exact opposite that I didn't really want to use Ciel. I actually quite like Verso as a character, but his gameplay just kind of seemed really boring and uninteresting to me. The party decides to continue the journey to kill the paintress, but along the way, Maël, who is still grieving over Gustave, just wants to bury him. Verso knows a location that is a secluded area and is also out of sight from the paintress. So the team heads there, which is the 4th dungeon of the game, and that also concludes day 3. Day 4 was mostly spent exploring and reaching the halfway point of the 4th dungeon. Day 5, we complete the 4th dungeon and we fight against one of the coolest bosses in the game. Just look at this guy. After beating him, we buried Gustave and we go on our way to recruit Monoko, the final member of our team. Monoko is a character archetype that I absolutely love playing as, which is the Blue Mage. Now, to those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, the Blue Mage is a class that originated from the Final Fantasy series that allows players to learn the abilities of enemies and use it against them. In this game, the feat-loving Monoko learns the abilities of enemies that you kill as long as he's in the fight. Oh yeah, Monoko's lore. Monoko is a gestural, characters within the world of E33 that were rumored to be fairy tales and legends. Throughout the game, you'll run into many gesturals, some big, some small, some tall, and some very, very unfriendly ones. Monoko is really just a big softie and a child at heart.
I fucked up. I just wanted to show off.
After picking up Monoko, I backtracked for the rest of the day to try to get as many abilities for Monoko as I could. On day 6, we reached Old Lumiere and learned about the true relationship between Verso and the old man, Renoir. Verso is the son of Renoir.
son.
We discover this and end up fighting Renoir. We hold him back, but his powers are still too strong. He ends up killing one of our friends, Noko, a little gestural that's been with us for a little bit now. Mael, who has been having visions throughout the game, has another one where she comes face to face with another woman who looks eerily similar to herself. The mansion and Renoir then vanish, and the team talks to Verso about his family. Verso's plan was to ask Alicia, the masked woman that looks like Mael, to help stop the Paintress. However, now that the mansion has vanished and could be anywhere in the world, Verso feels like their last chance has also vanished. Lune and Ciel, however, discovered that the Journal of Expedition 58, a different expedition that Verso traveled with, believed that Verso knew another way to gain access to the monolith, which is where the Paintress lies. We discover that this method is to create an all-powerful weapon that is strong enough to penetrate the barrier that is protecting the monolith. To create this weapon, they would need an immense amount of picto that they just can't get from normal enemies, and would have to kill these two giants called axons, which are on islands that are surrounding the monolith. Verso mentions that he hasn't even really entertained the idea because he's immortal and he still can't kill them.
I can't die, and I still couldn't take them down.
But hearing that, Lune immediately rebuttals, close to zero means that there's still a chance.
Close, but not zero. Death is coming either way.
With that, the team decides to head for the two axons. But before we get there, I spend the rest of day 6 exploring now that we have access to SKA's new ability. After exploring most of what I thought was available to me the day before, I decided to completely focus on the story today. During day 7, I went and defeated both axons and crafted the special weapon that only Mael can use for some reason. With it, I shattered the barrier around the monolith and went inside to what I thought was the final boss. When inside, it was a long hallway where you could see the Paintress just waiting there for you. When we finally got to her, it turns out that she's invincible and that the real Paintress is not this, but at the top of the monolith. The real Paintress, for some reason, appears before us and opens a pathway allowing us to enter the monolith. The group follows, and this is where day 7 ends. Day 8 was spent entirely by going through the monolith, which was an amalgamation of the dungeons that we have gone through previously in this game, but in pieces. I saved right before what I thought was the final boss and left that for the next day. Day 9 is that next day, and what I got was not the final boss, but it was a rematch against Renoir. The music in this fight, just listen to this. Anyway, we clapped his cheeks because I think I may have overleveled by exploring way too much, and I win on my first attempt. After beating him, this was now finally it. We were finally at the final boss where this entire game has been leading towards. We were finally going to face off against the Paintress, and it was glorious, but also kind of sad as well. We defeat the Paintress, and we plant Expedition 33's flag on top of the monolith. We were now heroes, and after 60 plus years, we finally defeated the Paintress. We returned home to Lumiere and we shared the good news to everyone. And nope, everyone is getting Thanos snapped. We wake up as Mael and see that she looks a little different. Her hair is longer and she now has the same burn marks on her face that Alicia had. It turns out that this whole time, Mael was Alicia. She is Verso's little sister. What? We are in the past, and in this scene, everything is starting to click. Okay, now I'm going into TLDR, and it's going to take a bit, so just bear with me a little. Ready? Alright, here we go. Renoir, Verso, and Alicia are all a part of a family called the Descendre family.
Descendre.
The
Descendre.
family have a special ability to paint anything, even souls and stuff, into a canvas. The things that they paint exist in their own world and universe. So Gustave, Lune, Ciel, and Lumiere, all paintings inside of a canvas. The paintress, Aline, is Verso and Alicia's mother, and of course, Renoir's wife. Alicia got tricked by a different family, which led to the death of Verso in real life. Aline, who loved her son so much and who had become overcome with grief, entered the last remaining canvas that Verso painted when he was still alive, which is this world that we've been playing through. This is the last remaining piece of his soul. Renoir, who is worried about his wife and just wants her to come back home, also enters the canvas, and the two of them have been battling against each other ever since. Aline becomes the paintress and is trying to protect what remains of Verso by living the remainder of her life there with her son's final creations, while Renoir is trying to destroy the canvas so that it can no longer trap his wife down there. The Thanos snaps, Gommage is Renoir trying to erase everything, and the number that the paintress paints is actually everyone that she can still protect. However, those of you who are astute may have noticed that we just killed the paintress, which is why everyone was now Thanos snapped. Anyways, Alicia wakes up and is met with her last remaining sibling, Clea, who is kind of a bitch, honestly. She's currently dealing with the family that killed Verso and tells Alicia to go into the canvas to go get Renoir. Alicia obeys and ends up getting lost, which leads to the birth of Mael. After being Thanos snapped as Mael, it restored all of Alicia's memories, and now we are Alicia, but also Mael. We find Verso sitting on the bench all by himself, and we talk about everything. We discover that our current Verso is nothing but a painting as well. A painting created by Aline of her memories of her lost son. Aline, who was suffering from grief, entered Verso's final canvas and created her own make-believe family in a make-believe world and made her family immortal so that they could never be taken away from her again. Alicia says that her father should be able to bring everyone back, so the two of them find the curator, the guy who's been upgrading our weapons and gear. All this time, that guy has been the real Renoir this whole time. The old man Renoir that we've been fighting against this whole time was the Renoir that Aline painted as a part of her own make-believe family. Someone to protect this world that she now lives in. Well, it turns out that the real Renoir doesn't want to help us and still wants to erase everything, so there goes that plan. Luckily for us, Alicia is also a paintress, so with the last bit of chroma left that she has access to, she repaints our party members back to life, Lune, Ciel, Monoko, and Esquier. We need more power if we're going to defeat the true final boss of this game, Dad, and to do that, we're gonna need some more chroma, since this entire world is within a canvas. Renoir is currently monopolizing all of the chroma left inside of the canvas, but we realize thanks to Gustave and Lune that the old expeditioners of the past that were killed by Nevrons still have chroma. They didn't disappear like the Gommage, so we can potentially use that to our advantage. Alicia states that it's not pure chroma, so it won't be like how she brought back the party, but they can still use it in different ways. Thus begins a short montage of the party going back to previous resting sites of expeditioners we've passed throughout the game.
obscure, voir des hauts peintures, trouvera sans elle.
It is after this cutscene that the world fully opens up. SKA can now finally fly, and you can now explore the entire world. So that's what I did for the next couple days. I went and completed every single side quest and maxed out everyone's relationship. Days 10, 11, and 12 I spent just exploring until I was satisfied. Day 13 came, and this was it. I knew that today was going to be the day I was deciding to finish the game. I flew back to Lumiere to confront Renoir and was faced with the final dungeon of the game. When we landed, we were faced with countless Neverons, but little did Renoir know, we had all of the previous expeditioners with us. Alicia summoned all that we gathered to help pave the way forward. We ran through the streets of Lumiere and it became apparent that this was it. The journey was finally coming to an end. We defeated everything that came before us, and then the time had come. All of this game led to this moment, this meeting.
Papa?
Alicia.
Please, I just want you to understand what this canvas means to me.
I do understand. I know how powerful and intoxicating it is. How deeply attached we can become to the worlds we pour our hearts and souls into. I was enthralled, and it nearly killed me.
It doesn't mean you have to erase Verso's canvas.
Child, do you think I want to? After all the sorrows we've endured, do you really think that I want to destroy this last piece of his soul?
Then don't.
Life keeps forcing cruel choices. We do what we must.
Grief often blinds us, and we make choices we can never take back.
You grieve for two.
I grieve for many.
The choices of parents leave indelible marks upon their children. But ultimately, the voices in their head have to be their own. You cannot set the boundaries of their life for them.
After the fire, you wanted me to find new joy in life. And I tried. But I couldn't. Verso died because of me. How do I get from that to joy?
Child, it will get better, I promise you. But this is not the way. Your friends speak truth. And it changes nothing. You can hate me. But that's a choice I must make. As your father, I must look out for you. Especially when you can't look out for yourself.
You treat me as if I'm still 5!
I treat you as if the shadow from the worst day of our lives is going to suffocate you and take you from us too! Enough. I said enough.
Anyways, I end up one-cycling him. I might be a little too strong for this fight. After defeating Renoir, he shows us what he has had to watch every single day for the last 70-ish years. He has been watching his wife slowly die, and he has been trying his damnedest to save her. Her being inside of this canvas is literally killing her. Renoir and Alicia argue for a bit, but eventually he gives in and he disappears, trying to believe in Alicia, knowing that she's going to do the same thing that her mother did, trapping herself in this world with her own make-believe family. Seeing that the pathway to their mother was still open, Verso thrusted himself inside of the portal. There, he sees fragments of a little boy that we've seen throughout the game. It turns out that the little boy has been the final remaining piece of Verso's soul. Alicia at this point also enters the portal, and now we have to make a decision which will give you a different ending depending on your choice. You can either side with Alicia and keep the last fragment of Verso's soul, painting for all of eternity to bring back everyone that was lost. Gustave, Sophie, CL's husband, Lune's parents, everyone. By siding with Alicia, we can have it all and live happily ever after. Or we can side with Verso, stop the fragments of his soul from painting and destroy the canvas with all of its inhabitants with it, but therefore saving the real lives and family outside of the canvas. I chose to side with Alicia because I had been with these characters for so long, it felt like a betrayal to abandon them. By choosing Alicia, we had to fight Verso in a 1v1. We beat him, and as he's dying, he's begging us to stop, begging us that he doesn't want this or to live like this. After that, we enter the Alicia ending. Everyone is alive and is attending a concert performed by Verso. We see everyone that had been lost along the way, and it feels like this is the good ending. But then this happens. And now, I feel like it was the wrong decision. Alicia is going to be just like Aline and will probably live here until she inevitably dies. Unsatisfied with that ending, I reboot my save and choose Verso's ending instead. In this one, it is bittersweet, as everyone begins to disappear for good, and we get to see the
descendre,
family mourn the loss of Verso together. We also get one final goodbye from the squad, and this one definitely feels like the good ending, even if everyone is no longer here. This feels like the beginning of healing for a family that has lost so much, and I think this is a much healthier ending as well. Anyways, that was my long journey of Expedition 33. If you made it this far, I would greatly appreciate it if you could do the YouTube stuff, the like, subscribe jazz. That's it from me, and remember to keep on gaming.